thought it would be fun to start a series, if you will, called Intuitive Teatime with the two of us. And it sort of is going back to our roots because before Typebook, we released a few videos where we just talked about whatever was on our minds.
Yes.
And it was a lot of fun. And sometimes we would start a discussion and kind of have no idea where it was going. And it was always interesting. So I think we're going to start having a regular series called Intuitive Teatime. And we'll just share our thoughts on things. And hopefully those of you listening will chime in with your thoughts. And it'll be fun. You can brew yourself a cup of tea or coffee. Don't tell Chris I said that.
No, it's tea time.
Oh, so I guess coffee is illegal. So you can't brew yourself a cup of coffee. It has to be tea. So for this first Intuitive Tea Time, we thought we would talk about eccentricity because it's an interesting topic. What is it to be eccentric? How many of you think you're eccentric? What is eccentric, actually?
I think, firstly, it means different things to different people, right?
Well, I think at its root, it means to be off-center.
What's the precise definition?
Oh, I'm so glad.
Google it, TI person.
I'm so glad you asked me. As an adjective, it's of a person or their behavior, unconventional and slightly strange. But technically speaking, of a thing not placed centrally or not having its axis or other part placed centrally. As a person, and if you say someone is an eccentric, then that's a person of unconventional and slightly strange views or behavior.
Well, that's me then. I think most people would think I am. Most people would think that INTJs are incredibly eccentric. Now, we're not all the same, obviously, and I've never known another INTJ to take this with a boulder of salt. Maybe it's just me. But we are very unconventional. We do what we want, I think. That's what's different. The stuff we do is kind of unconventional to the way we do it, as well as it itself.
I know that I'm eccentric, but I don't know that anyone else would say that I am, unless you really know me very well. And I think that's because I don't know, and I don't want to give other people the idea that I'm eccentric for some reason.
I just don't care. And that's probably to my detriment.
I know I'm eccentric. Like, I definitely feel that I am. But I guess I put on enough of a good act that people wouldn't think that I am. And why that is? Why do I care? It's not like I really care. I think at this point in my life, it's more that I can't be bothered to just show who I am if people don't care. So it's not really like I'm hiding
I think
something.
You're more vulnerable in that, though, aren't you?
Maybe.
Like you go with the flow and sort of do the FE thing. You're like FETI in this way, and then I'm the opposite.
Right. But what does it mean to be eccentric? I would think that the majority of people who consider this would probably think that they're intuitive in some way.
Yeah, because it's weird.
Right, because it's
that's
weird.
That's why they type anyone who's slightly more any manifestly as like an INTP or an ENFP.
The whole inspiration for this topic came because I was looking at an ESFJ male who was doing a knitting podcast, and he referred to himself as eccentric. And I would think that probably a lot of ESFJs would probably consider themselves to be eccentric.
I think so.
And they are.
I don't know. Some of them are like a bit more proper, aren't they?
So maybe they wouldn't consider themselves to be. But I mean, a man who knits is already kind of a
novelty.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I know there are men that do needlework and things, but it's certainly not as common as in women. So, he's a man who loves to knit. He probably already knows that's kind of quote unquote weird. So he considers himself eccentric in that way.
Well, what do you think about owning eccentricity then? Does this make you more or less?
When you
so for instance,
admit to it?
If he's like, oh yeah, I'm a man and I like to knit, is that part of his eccentricity? The fact that he's like, yeah, and what?
No.
Does it need to be like on show, or like can you be like a secret eccentric, like hiding your basement knitting and you don't tell anyone? Does that make you eccentric or not?
No, I think it's probably just because he knows things about himself that would probably be considered strange by mainstream standards. So for him, again, if you consider the definition, it's something that's not quote unquote normal. And what is normal, right? We can only judge normal by what we see around us. And so if you look around and most men aren't knitting, I guess as a man who knits, you probably think that's kind of strange. That's not normal.
Yeah, see, this is why people would think I'm eccentric or weird. I would just call it weird.
Well, that's the thing. What is eccentric then? Is it weird or is it more to it than that? For me, when I've heard the word growing up, I always thought eccentric was a little bit beyond weird. Like I remember
But I would
people
call it weird
saying,
just because that's what the word I would use. I'd think, oh, I'm so weird.
I remember eccentric was always reserved for like old people who didn't have children, who lived like in a house and did strange things and had weird collections and had strange hobbies. I think now the term is a little bit more as Chris looks around at all his evidence of his strange hobbies. I don't know. I think probably now more people would embrace the term. Like I would think in the past, maybe it wasn't such a flattering thing to be called eccentric.
Well, again, it's the times you live in, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Because I think odd things, or what's deemed to be eccentric thing, is or has changed. So though it might in the past mean that you deviated from, say, like contemporary centrist things, I don't know, getting married, all that stuff.
I mean, how many young people do you really think are considered eccentric? Or is that something that people reserve for much older people? Can you think of any younger people that you would say are eccentric?
I mean, I can think of people that I've come across in some form.
Not many, though, right?
Well, I mean, I've seen them on the internet and things.
And what do they look like? Like, what's
Like
eccentric to you?
I mean, I saw one guy dressed as like this is on YouTube. He dressed as like a Regency gentleman every day. I thought, that guy's eccentric. He tailor-made all of his clothes. He was like a tailor. And he made all these outfits, and they were amazing. And he had like the top hats, and it was so cool, really. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but I just thought, yeah, like, guy's living his life. Respect,
Right. So that sort of aligns to what I was saying earlier.
Is
Like
it owning it then?
It's kind of, well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, are you eccentric if you don't show it? This is the thing, isn't it? Because in a way I might be able to argue that maybe you're not. Because you sort of get along and do your thing in peace and like you're not criticised for it. Whereas me, everyone hates on me for it. And they don't feel bad doing so because I don't cry or something. Like an FE person might.
Yeah, I don't know
or
if
like
they
show that I'm
I don't
upset.
know that they would consider you eccentric, though. I think they just think you're weird.
Oh. Well, that's it, though, isn't it? And I've told you stories, haven't I?
I know, but
about people. I'm like a novelty. No one gets it.
I think it takes a certain level of understanding to even really use the term eccentric, to be honest, because people wouldn't call you that. Because I don't think they.
No, well, I think perhaps the word isn't sort of in people's minds.
Well, because they live in the normal bubble. I think in order to sort of really even
I just don't think most people would
discussion,
use the word eccentric. They'd say, oh, he's a weirdo or he's a creep.
So you think that's what a creep?
Well, that's what probably younger people would say, wouldn't they? They're not going
No.
like, oh, look at that person, he's an eccentric.
I don't think creep would enter into it. No.
Well, I don't know. I mean, people use people's vocabulary these days isn't impressive, really.
That's true. So, do you think I'm eccentric? Me?
I'm not sure. I would say you are, but then I kind of know you, don't I?
What makes you think I'm eccentric?
Well, you're just not normal, are you?
That's not helpful.
In the most, flattering way.
What's not normal about me?
Well, like you do loads of weird stuff. You always go on about natural stuff, and you got like that sort of witchy element. The witchy element thing where you're like, oh, put arnica on it. Arr! You always go on about that.
The
You always
witchy
got
though.
like some catchphrase to do with natural stuff.
Huh. And you think that's eccentric? Interesting.
It's
You
not
know,
every day. It's not every
it's
day that
true.
someone
It's
says
true.
those things.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
a bit eccentric. Because most
Yeah.
people will be like, just go to the doctor's office, right?
Yes. And it's true because when I am out there in the world and I'm with
Yeah, and
people,
you don't mention the stuff because everyone will be
no, I
like,
don't.
you're weird.
Yeah. Right. And sometimes I do just to see what will happen. And it's very funny because everyone just shuts up immediately and looks at me and I'm thinking, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I get similar things because I mean I'm not like I'm in line with your thinking in this way.
right. I think my humor is eccentric. I mean, I don't know if you even always see it, but I mean, my humor is weird. Like, I don't even know if it's definitely not objectively funny. It's just funny to me. But yeah, I definitely think that's weird. I definitely have a lot of, I don't know, is it just because you have so many interests? I feel like I need more people who are not eccentric are kind of run of the mill people, They work, they come home, they eat, they sit
Yes,
in front of the TV. They don't have a lot of hobbies. They might get together with friends. And you and I know a lot of people like this.
yes,
Um, but like that's not us. We don't watch TV. we
no.
have we have a lot of hobbies. We probably could have many hobbies if we had the time and space between the two of us.
Like
Um,
for instance, like I know
col-
an ESFJ
right.
that I would say is. I mean, you could. I don't know. Could I say he's eccentric? I guess he is, but he's in a very ordinary way. And for instance, I would say, no, I don't watch TV. And then he'd look at me like, well, you don't watch TV. But then he's rather odd in his like sense of humour and stuff. I don't know. Like it slips out. That's what I'm saying. He's kind of ordinary, but then in some weird ways, he just slips out some weirdness that you could say is eccentric.
I think it's all comes down to your perspective as to how you define it. I mean, for him, he's eccentric, but you might not think he is because the way you look at it, you're coming from a different viewpoint. For
The
me,
eccentric one.
For me, I think I'm eccentric. I have all kinds of weird collections. I have varied interests. I have this fascination with praying mantis. That's kind of odd, isn't it? I mean, that's not your normal run of the mill sort of thing. Yeah, like there's a lot of weird things that I'm interested in.
I'm sure a lot of
But then,
NI dominants would be like, oh yeah, 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 I get you.
yeah, but then I've seen, other things. Like years ago, I went to this auction and the couple had passed away. And you want to talk about, I mean, everyone probably would have used the word eccentric. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. They were collectors of everything. And I don't even know how they lived in their house, but they had like original Levi's jeans. Like every gift that they got, they left in the box and didn't use it. Like their house was like a time capsule of
Yeah.
every single thing imaginable.
Is that
It,
eccentric though, or was that
I
just
don't
like
know, or is
being
that,
old and having loads of stuff from lots of different eras?
well, it is eccentric because who lives like that? I mean, it's one thing to hold on to some things, but you should have seen this. I mean, the auctioneer himself said he had never in all his years of being an auctioneer had ever seen anything like this. Like the house was stuffed full. The barn, you should have seen the barn. They had box lots,
Is
like
this
you
just what
wouldn't
happens to like
believe.
ISTJs when they get old though?
No, no,
They just
no.
crew all this stuff and then suddenly they're eccentric. Like when people get old, their standards sort of like slip, don't they?
They were obviously collecting things when they were a young couple. They did not just start collecting stuff as older people. These were things that they got when they were young and just hung on to. I mean, they were, I think, in their 90s or something when they died.
When is young?
Well, the things that they had dated from when they were probably in their like 20s a lot, not everything, but some of the things. They
Okay.
saved every letter. They saved every gift. Like they didn't use the gifts that they got. They kept them
Is that
in their
eccentric or is it
gift
just the
box.
hoarders?
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Would people
Is
consider
a hoarder
hoarders to be eccentric?
eccentric?
Maybe, according to some people's definition. That's what I was going back to. How do you define it? How does everyone do it? It depends on how you define it. I mean, what, again, go back to the definition, something that's not normal or whatever. What is normal? We probably all have very different definitions of that.
I feel like most people would say that eccentric is someone that acts off-center. So like ENFP, if you want to generalize, would probably be eccentric. Russell Brand or Robin Williams.
So it's in their observable behavior then, is what you're saying.
I think that's what most people would think. If you said, I don't know, who's the eccentric here? Robin Williams, Stanley Tucci.
For me, I don't consider that eccentric. The way I define it, of course, this is all based on my perspective. I think an eccentric person is defined by their varied and different interests.
Yes, so that'd be us then.
Right. But see, that's my perspective. It's biased, Whereas someone else might consider, like you said, a Russell Brand. He's eccentric because he's outwardly.
Okay, well, put it this way, right? You don't push the boat out in terms of showing people who you are, necessarily. But then at the same time, for me, I kind of don't hide it. And I can tell you what people think of me. Like, they don't think I'm real. They don't think I'm a real person. So surely I must be. I mean, I've told you all the stories, like people at work and stuff, haven't I?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they don't think I'm real. I don't know. I don't believe I'm real in some way.
Pinch yourself. Do you feel it?
I mean, I am a strange thing. I can speak to a lot of things. My interests, almost like if I listed them all, you can imagine this person, really. Because you'd say, no, that person can't exist. They can't like all those things. Because if I imagine someone who powerlifts, they're this kind of person. Someone paints, they're this kind of person. Or someone's interested in that, they're more like this kind of person. But when they're all my interests, aren't they? I get an impression people don't think I'm real. Or perhaps I make things up. Like a serial liar. Like I'm an expert, or I'm trying to show people that I'm an expert at everything, or know it all. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure how I come across, really. I mean, I don't go around trying to be a know-it-all for sure, but like I don't tell people most things just because.
Yeah, well, this is probably unknowingly why I don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know I have more sense. Exactly, I have more sense.
Whereas and like I was saying earlier, like I'm something this way to be like, do I want?
To your detriment, right?
Yeah,
right.
So I don't
think
hide.
You're a weirdo.
And I tell people, go out my way to be like, actually, I show that I know things about a lot of things, and I think people find that strange, or that I couldn't possibly. One young girl said to me, because I mentioned the powerlifting stuff, and she was like,
yeah.
Why aren't you a personal trainer then? And I was like, because I don't want to be. Like, why can't I know, near enough as much as a personal trainer would, and just do it for fun?
Yeah.
Why? Why do I want to be a personal trainer? It was such a narrow, an SI way of seeing something.
Yeah. Right. Like if that's your area of specialization, then why don't you do this for a living? Right. Exactly.
Why do you do this thing instead? That's what she was saying.
Right.
It's like, but I do this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing and also this thing as well.
I get that because I definitely have certain interest in my life, and then people don't understand why I don't do something in that area to make money. I've had that before.
Yeah.
Quite a few times. Well, you're talented in this area. Why aren't you making money from that? Why don't you have a job in this thing?
Like what my dad said to me back along, he said, yeah, if you're really good at painting those little faces, you'd be great at like microchips and stuff. It's like, but I don't want to mess with microchips. Why do I want to mess with microchips as a job? Why is everyone trying to ruin my fun? Why can't I just do something because I want to?
Yeah.
And this is, again, like referring back to the way I am. I do what I want. And people don't get it. They're like, if you have all this specialism, why don't you do it for money?
Yeah, I definitely get that. I have gotten that as well. Basically, I think that's what they're thinking. Why do you waste all that time getting so good at something?
Yeah, I think some people might think, I mean, I don't know because I'm clueless as, but I think some people might think, why do you waste your talents? Because you're quite good at a lot of things. But then again, like, to me, it's a matter of, well, I put the effort in and I've yielded results. It's not like I'm naturally better than other people. I don't really see it like that way. I'm just obsessive about learning things. That's my thing. Learning things is my
Right.
talent in a way.
I'm still shocked that other people aren't like this. Again, it's because you live in your own skin and you know how you are. And I still am shocked that people don't have hobbies.
I'm shocked when, well, firstly, that most people have no interest in other people and what they do.
Right.
And I find that baffling because I want to know about everyone, every little interesting thing they do. And when I find someone who does something that you could argue is eccentric in some way or interesting, I want to know why. Like, why are you doing it? What made you do it? What do you get from it? What's your process? I want to know everything. Most people are just like, I don't know, I can't comprehend it in some way. It's like they have
'Cause
no curiosity.
I know.
If there was a guy like me in my workplace, I'd be like, tell me everything.
That's how I am. If I meet someone who shares that they have an interesting collection or an interest in a specific subject area, then I want to know, like, wow, my first question is, what got you into that?
Yeah.
What made you want to start whatever it
Like,
is?
I'm so enthusiastic about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. I think this is why people, well, I mean, I hope, again, I'm clueless, but this is why I hope people like me, or why I think they might like me, or maybe that, why I think it might be why people find it hard not to like me. I don't know. Do they? No, I can talk myself out of it, but I think people like me because I'm interested in things they do. But they're never interested back necessarily, which I find strange. Again, for the same reasons I've already said, I find anything interesting. That sounds weird, but if someone's got a hobby like animating, I'm so interested, like, wow, that's different. That's a thing you have. That's a hobby. And some people just have one hobby, don't they? That's their thing.
Right. Hmm.
And they might not do it professionally, but I just find it so interesting and I want to know why they do everything. Why do they do it? Where do they want to go?
But you find it's acceptable to have one hobby, but not more than that.
Most people probably think if you've got more than one hobby, then you're strange.
Exactly. Because I know of several people, because we were just talking about how some people don't have any hobbies, or if you say, I have a hobby, they think, well, you should be doing something with it, i.e., making money. But then I also do know people who work, full-time, regular job, whatever that would be, and then they come home and spend a lot of time on their hobby.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yes.
That's acceptable. But then when you have more than one, or you have many interests, then that gets outside the bounds, I guess, of what's considered acceptable.
Yeah, I feel like some types of people, they would be like, oh, look at this. I have 7 hobbies, or 4 hobbies and 21 areas of interest that I study. And they'd be like, come on, man, sort your life out. What are you doing? I feel like that's the attitude.
Yeah.
Like, why haven't you dedicated your life to,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Why haven't you narrowed it down?
robotics?
Yeah.
Or why haven't you just focused on one thing? Why aren't you a professional this? And I can't imagine doing that.
I know. So what is the most eccentric thing about you?
It's probably the combination, isn't it? That's what I think.
The combination meaning all of your interests aren't necessarily connected in any
No,
kind of
it
way
doesn't make
people can
sense.
understand. Okay, right.
Because there's no type that
Yeah.
does all the things I do. If I listed them all off now, people wouldn't believe it. People you imagine in all these different things and they're a certain way. And I do all these things and I don't fit in any of them.
In my family, we have a Christmas gift exchange, and my one sister-in-law wants us to fill out a paper. And of course, it's very, basic. Which my favorite restaurant, my favorite type of music, my favorite candy, my favorite color, something that you really need, something that you don't need, that kind of thing. It's very basic. And so every year I take it as like this challenge to make it the weirdest thing possible. I put all kinds of strange things on there. I am like at my weirdest when I fill this paper out. And every year I think, what do they think of me? I mean, this is the immediate family, right? Siblings and all that. And I think, what do they think? And no one ever says anything about it. And I've put some very strange things on this paper. And I don't know if they just think it's
this
just
is what
me,
I mean
or they
about
don't.
not
That's what I mean.
Real.
Yeah.
I think that when they perceive us, ordinary people, they don't know. They're like, huh? You're not like the guy that goes to work and does the same job every day and then watches TV, or, all these different archetypes, or like, you could say ESTP male or ISTJ male or ENFP male. Like, all these things are like, yes, you're weird, you're steady, yes, you're this, you're that. I think people think like that, and for us, they're like, what is this? They can't define like what sort of person we are.
Yes, that's right. So you mentioned earlier the powerlifting thing, and you got me into it. When I've shared this with people, they've actually kind of made fun of me. Yeah, they don't believe that I do it, or they'll quote unquote tease me about it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand.
I get a bit of this too, maybe. Like I said earlier, like, I'm not the conventional. When you tell someone, oh yeah, I do powerlifting and, I'm quite good at it. I lift like 3 times my body weight or whatever off the floor. And they don't believe it. But I think that's because both of us in this case, we don't fit the role, the archetype.
No, right.
Because if you are someone who lifts 3 times their body weight off the floor, you have to be this sort of like type, don't you? You have to be this like sort of what is typically like an SE kind of type. Usually it's your thing and you love it, and like the energizing of it, and we don't fit the model of that, really. People
I think
find
most
it strange.
things that I do is very surprising to people. I don't think they have high expectations of me in general. For some reason, I guess to look at me, I must be very underwhelming.
I think it's because we are unassuming, aren't we?
I think. And it's the same with the powerlifting, and it's the same with pretty much everything I do.
We don't fit the mold. Most people go around sort of type casting people like, oh, you're...
Right, you're the powerlifting type.
MBTI terms, but they go, oh, you're this ISFJ, you're sweet and you're like this. And I think most people probably would see you like that. Some people might see your more eccentric side and think, oh, you're sort of more, I don't know, INFP, ENFP, or something, even that intuitive way. People do have different perceptions, don't they? I think that's what they do.
Right, because I have all these interests. I do powerlifting, which doesn't seem to suit me. And then the whole singing thing, and I can be very much a performer, which kind of doesn't seem to suit me. And then
because you're an introvert, and that's weird. And
and then I'm very, very good at baking things, like almost professional level baking. I'm also almost a scientist. Like, I know so much about birds, I think it would make people's heads spin. Like, I can go out on a walk and identify pretty much any bird that I hear. And then I write poems. I write lots of things. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on. I do needlework. There's so much. And I think it just doesn't, like you said, they have a specific image in their mind of what a person who does needlework should look like.
Yes.
Or what a power lifter should look like.
Yes.
Or what a writer looks like. Or what a bird nerd looks like. Yes. And they can't take all those things and synthesize it into one person.
The mold.
Yes.
Because, I guess a powerlifting male should be like, I should go in with like one of those vests, and I should be trying to like show off all my muscle and walk in a certain way and
grunt at the gym.
Yeah, and I should be dumb like that. And all that.
Right.
And I don't.
Yeah. So what do you think out there, anyone who's listening? How do you define eccentricity? Do you think you're eccentric? Would other people consider that you're eccentric? What do you think of our thoughts? We'd love to hear what everyone has to say out there because it's an interesting topic. And I think a lot of people who listen here probably have varied interests like we do, I would think. I mean, if you
Yes.
think about it, just this whole typology thing is kind of a strange thing in and of itself to have an interest in. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another intuitive tea time.
Make sure you make tea if you hadn't for this one, because it's a crime, and we would know if you have not.
So it's not eccentric to have coffee during tea time.
That's banned. No coffee. You must have tea, and you need to like the video. Otherwise, this series is over.
I don't think so. You like to talk too much.